welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boy down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 27th, 2021. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton is sticky and muggy down here. We got some little showers going on. I started to take off my clothes and go outside in the rain, but I realized I had this bunny rabbit running around in my backyard, and I didn't want him leaping on me and everything. But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. Just in case that bunny rabbit had jumped up and grabbed the holes of me, I know you'd have been around to help me.
It's all fair in love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. It's better to have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love pausing, Big C, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. A lot more people are doing it now. They will never, ever give our veterans wrong advice, Big C. Why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, mental health is something that every American struggles with from birth to death. It is something that we go through on a daily basis, making adjustments in our lives. Unfortunately, Charlton, a lot of our veterans don't have that support base when they're trying to make those adjustments, and it has led to over 24 suicides a day amongst our great American veterans, Charlton.
Wow.
We as a country need to think about just everybody, our veterans as well as our everyday layman citizens, because mental illness has affected so many people in this country, Charlton, and yet this country thinks it's an embarrassment to address it. It is not. It is part of everyday life, and we have to pay more attention to it as a culture, because if we do, then we can help people stop suicide all over this great nation, Charlton. It is part of our civic and American duty to pay attention to those next to us.
Very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Home Run King, as well as the Say Hey Kid. Reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to help put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships are doing it, sports teams are doing it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and just say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Also, Big C Sports is the only sports show in the universe that has access to the Big C Burger. It is a tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats. And Big C, you know, people talk about KFC. Colonel Sanders never gives out what's on his recipe that makes it finger looking good. And I only tell him the exotic meats, but I won't tell him what kind of exotic meats Big C does.
Well, Charlton, people just have to be aware of what's not walking around in their yard.
Yeah, it's all fair. 11 Wars. Sometime I'm out walking the dog, Big C, It's amazing how everybody, for the dog lovers, they think that everybody wants their sniffy, smelly behind dog to walk up and start sniffing on your dog, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, I mean, a lot of those dogs no longer roam the streets and stuff. It has become very popular.
Yeah, it's funny though. One lady, she seemed like she was offended that I didn't want her dog sniffing on my dog. And I said, how would you feel if I came and started sniffing on you? You wouldn't appreciate that. So if I don't want you sniffing on my dog, I don't want your dog sniffing my dog. She thought I was uppity, had an uppity dog, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, she has to make sure the dog hasn't had his COVID-19 vaccination.
Yeah. Just because you got a dog, I don't want your dog running up on my dog, sniffing my dog behind. It's all fair in love and war. Man, I tell you, there's a lot of good things that are going on in the sports world. We have the Major League Baseball, of course, swinging the bat, Big C. NBA basketball is fantastic, except for some of the fans who don't know how to behave, Big C. WNBA basketball is always great. In the hockey, NHL is doing their thing on ice. But I love talking about a lot of good things that happen in sports. But I will start out today's conversation when I think about it, and I know people were joking about Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City telling people to rough up Trae Young, and if he comes in there, the Knicks are going to rough him up and set him up and don't bring that flopping garbage to Madison Square Garden. It's one thing when you give a message, Big C, and maybe you're being flippant, but sometimes people don't have the faculty to realize that you don't really mean go out and try to hurt somebody, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to think about the fans of the NBA. They've acted an ass for a long time, as far as abusing players. We go back to the Malice at the Palace and various other incidents, Charlton, where players have had drinks thrown on them and popcorn thrown on them and racial epithets thrown on a regular basis. The NBA has accepted that because majority of the fans have been white coming to these arenas. But I think with the change from the last administration, Charlton, is people have really gone over the line.
Yeah.
I mean, these things happened decades ago, even when I played, Charlton. You have to listen to the racial rhetoric that would come down from fans, things that they say about your family and all of that. But you'd always invite them. Come on down a little further and let's see how far that mouth will go at that point.
Yeah, I think about it, whether it's whatever it is, something that triggers the bad behavior, and not just dealing with what Mayor de Blasio talked about. A lot of
it had nothing to do with de Blasio. I mean, don't bring the mayor into that equation because the mayor cannot be the reason for stupidity from people. These incidents have gone along long before de Blasio was the mayor of New York, and when he was a young man, these things were still going on in New York as well as around the country, Charlton. You can't blame a political figure, for saying what he says, we will take care of your flopping, Charlton, when fans do the actions that they do against players.
Well, I mean, from football to hockey, Big C, almost everyone has had a favorite sport or a favorite sports team that they love to root for, and teams they love to root against. Beat LA or beat Boston. We've heard that many, many moons growing up. But what happens is when the cheering turns to jeering and the hype turns into hate, it's no surprise that many sports fans, sometimes they take it too far. And I will say that Mayor Bill de Blasio, Big C, whether people say don't bring him into it or not, here's a man that he made a press conference. Okay, that's a lot different than just someone showing up at a game, maybe having too many libations, which I've experienced many, many times around fans, especially at the Black Hole where the Raiders were kicked out of Oakland, Big C. But he had a press conference, and not everybody knows how to be flippant. Some people are just dumb. And when they think someone gives them that red light, Big C, or that green light, I'm sure the Blasio, he should come along and say, yeah, look, that's not what I was asking for, and I apologize, I was wrong, and I don't encourage any type of that abusive behavior, Big C. Your thoughts?
I'm not going to give the mayor's statement that much grace to Charlton to say that he's the reason why these fans are being a butt up in the stand. When they cuss out players, and they were doing that before the mayor had spoken out, Charlton, you're going to blame the mayor about that when all the incidents that fans have gone through. I mean, the Washington Wizards have a fan, Charlton, Larry the Hackler is what they call him.
Yeah.
And for decades, he has been the most agitating man in the NBA. This man is now in his 70s, but he sits behind the bench. He's a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
And all he does is agitate players of the opposing team, Charlton, game in and game out for 4 decades now in the NBA. And no mayor, no governor, anything has had anything to do with that.
Yeah. I understand that too, but it's still a point of view that needs to be addressed. I wanna bring up one time. I've covered MMA fighting really for about the last 7 years in Northern California. Some of the top fighters in the world fly in to Northern California and do some training with Team Alpha Male, Uriah Favor's camp, and a lot of other fighters too. But I'll never forget what happened. I was covering a fight one night, and they had the MMA guys. They'll have like 10 fights a night sometimes. There was a radio personality in Northern California that was saying the guy's a bum, the guy's washed up. In fact, they had a fight over at the Golden One Center. It was covered by Fox Sports. And this radio personality, I'm not going to say his name, but he was saying how the guy was a bum, the guy's washed up, and he can't fight anymore, and he's only doing it for the money. I was never forget, I was there when that radio personality was in the same elevator with that MMA fighter that he was saying he's a bum and he's washed up. And the MMA guy said to him, "Hey, you're the guy that talked blankety blank about me on the radio, aren't you?" And the radio guy started shaking, maybe even peeing his pants. "Oh, well, that's just my job. I don't really mean what I say. I was just joking." He said, "The next time you want to say something about me, at least have the balls to do it in the octagon." The guy was like going to pee his pants. Big C, your thoughts?
So would you blame Gavin Newsom for that, since he's the governor of California, that this radio announcer would have the balls to say this vitriol about this fighter? I mean, everybody, when you're in a broadcast booth, I've done it. I've had players look for me in airports because of things that I've said to them, about them on television or radio, Charlton, and they have a family member call them when they're in an airport, say, he said these things about you, and they're looking for me wanting to fight. People are sensitive about what somebody says about them. Several years ago up in Utah, when a fan used racial epithets towards Russell Westbrook, and he was going to go into the stands after him, would you call the governor of Utah or mayor of Utah, of Salt Lake City, and say that they had something to do with that, Charlton? The stupidity of fans have been around forever. These people think that they're invincible because they're protected by the damn league. The leagues, not only should they just ban them for life, Charlton, and never give them an opportunity to walk into a game again, they should bring civil suits against these individuals because you allowed them to come onto your property and abuse your property. If it was your dog, you'd have took them to court and sued them over your dog. But you won't protect the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball players from this crap that they have to deal with. The sidelines be the sidelines. You keep your butt in your territory, and we stay in ours. But once they cross that line, Charlton, it should be like somebody trespassing in your house. You have the right to put your foot clean up in their butt.
Yeah, well, I disagree with that because that's called a lawsuit. And if you hit the wrong person and knock somebody over, maybe a fatality ensues. And then
on your property, no one can sue you. You have the right to protect your domain. And the NBA court is the domain of the players. They have settled that, Charlton. You are not. I mean, think about this. Charles Oakley got arrested for vitriol that he used against James Dolan, the owner of the New York Knicks. He had to go to jail and was facing a lawsuit. So why can't the players protect themselves like an owner can?
Yeah, but when you just advocated that someone should go to fisticuffs and punch another person like Ron Artest did and got in a lot of trouble, Big C, even the great Latrell Sprewell when he choked it was PJ Carlesimo. I never advocate that somebody takes their hands and punch another person just because they were stupid and came into your territory. And oftentimes the courts would frown on that. In fact, some of these MMA guys, they have a license their body's considered a lethal weapon. If they were to beat somebody up like you're advocating, they could face prosecution because they're considered a lethal weapon, Big C. So I would never advocate for that. But what I would advocate for is just like the media personality that I stood next to, when he got into an elevator and the MMA guy that's very well known said, "You're the guy that talked crap about me, right, on the radio?" The guy got so nervous about to pee his pants. You know what he did, Big C? He apologized. And he said, "I'm sorry, I was just trying to do my job, but I'm sorry I was out of place." But he was about to get beaten down, and no one could have held that fight up. But you know that MMA fighter would have been arrested for assault, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we've seen basketball players, Charlton, and football players be attacked on a regular basis over the last several years on television because there's so many cameras available to witness these events. So what is the answer for protecting athletes, Charlton, to allow fans to abuse them with no recourse, Charlton, other than losing your tickets? Then how in the hell do you find out if that fan has gotten a ticket and got back into the arena? Are you going to use fingerprint identity for everybody who walks into the arena or stadium? You're going to use facial recognition technology, Charlton? You can't do that. The only way you're going to be able to get at their butts is take them to court. And the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, Charlton, has to set this up. I've seen hockey players go into the stands. I've seen them scale the glass to get at somebody who was throwing a drink on them during the game.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me if you're sitting there, at home or even walking to the park and somebody just comes up and pours a drink on you, you're going to be, okay, well, have a good day. I'm sorry that I was in your way.
No, I'm just saying, you might want to talk to the judge about that, but I'm saying if your advice is to tell professional athletes, even in the world of MMA, these guys are considered lethal weapons. But if you're going to tell Calais Campbell, who was going to try to go into the stands up in Jacksonville a couple of years ago, but somebody did something stupid to him, are you going to tell a trained athlete that he should go and punch somebody in the face because he got into your territory? That guy's going to be in court, and you're not going to bail him out. He's going to need his lawyer. I think they have security for a reason, and if the security turns their back and doesn't do the right job, of course they can prosecute people. Most every stadium has a jail in that stadium, Big C. They don't have to send you out to the constable. They can put you in the jail cell that's right there in the arena. But I would never advocate to tell a professional athlete to punch somebody just because you think you can get away with it. You're going to end up with a lot of legal problems, especially if it ends up in a fatality, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it has happened, Charlton, before, and I'm an advocate for it to continue happening. If the fans feel that they can continue to get into your space and physically assault you, when someone physically assaults you, they've made contact with you, Charlton. By law, you have a chance, you have the legal right to respond and protect your person.
Well, I mean, everybody has their own opinion. That's why they have so many jail cells.
They're stated in law. Stated in law. You have the right to protect yourself when somebody physically accosts you, when they go that far. And you're not going to lose in a court of law.
Well, if you advocate that athletes beat up fans, that's your own word. And when they stand in front of the judge being charged and sued, remember Big C said to go do that. I think that's a dumb thing to do. You should never, ever advocate for that. That's why they have law enforcement there and let law enforcement ferret it out. That's just my opinion. It's also an opinion of a lot of judges that put people behind bars. But I want to say people will do what they got to do. I want to touch on Black American history. And one more thing I'll say too, Big C. I grew up with a couple of guys that ran around in gangs. They beat people up. Some were Bloods, some were Crips. When they got in trouble in their city, whether LA or Oakland or the Bay Area, they send them out of town to hide from police enforcement, okay? These are the same guys that instead of being told, like Dr. King told everybody, to turn the other cheek, some of these dumb guys had guns, some of these dumb guys had knives, and some of these guys hurt people because they did not have the discipline to walk away. Like a lot of smart people will tell you, even a smart lawyer will tell you to walk away. I think the worst advice in the world is to tell young black men that have oftentimes tens of millions of dollars in the bank to risk what's called manslaughter by beating somebody up who may be drunk or going into the stands like Ron Artest. I don't think any of those guys would say that they did the right thing. It was a huge mistake. If they had the right mind, they would have never done that, Big C. That's what law enforcement is for. But I
was listening to Ron Artest today talking, and he talked about the mental anguish that he suffered from the deal at the Malice at the Palace, Charlton, when he went into the stands. All the time thinking that fans and other people would come at him when they started verbally attacking him. Not only attacking him, attacking himself, attacking his mother, calling her various nasty names, Charlton, and other family members, and how he suffered mentally from that over the years, Charlton. And so you have to look at what it does to an individual that's been attacked. And Ron Artest even contemplated suicide a few times because of all of what he went through over that incident, Charlton. So you don't know what the depths are that hurt individuals. I mean, you can sit there on the outside and say, yes, the fan is justified, and they'll find a way to get the fan back, Charlton, the media or the security within the arena.
Yeah.
But what happens to the people that they attack on a regular basis, Charlton? Do you feel safe, and where do you feel safe after that?
Well, you can have your day in court, but I would never advise, just like the MMA guy that had the radio guy in the elevator. He could have beaten him up. He could have knocked him out in about 10 seconds. But he's smart, and he knows he could have done that. But he's not a dumb guy, and that's why he did not get arrested that night. So giving the advice to go beat somebody up, I think is always wrong advice, because you're not the one standing in front of the judge with the handcuffs on, Big C. I think that's poor advice to give to especially young black men to go beat somebody up because you're an athlete. That's not smart at all. That's my opinion, though. But Black history, there's a toddler that admitted into American Mensa, has an IQ of 146, makes history as its youngest member. And I doubt if this toddler with an IQ of 146 has been raised to go out and throw hands on somebody just because somebody's acting a butt, Big C. There's too many bouncers around and security to be laying hands on people when you don't have to, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think if this is a toddler, they might not even be able to lay hands on themselves.
They may slobber on them, Big C.
Dealing with an adult,
Yeah.
it's a very different situation. When they come up and continuously attack athletes, Charlton, who's going to draw the line when these people are no longer able to attack athletes? But to have a young person, Charlton, with an IQ of 146,
amazing.
That is a phenomenal number for an adult.
Yeah, it's a high number for an adult. 2-year-old African-American girl has just made history as the youngest member of American Mensa, California. Her name is Keisha Quest, Big C, IQ 146, was accepted into the High IQ Society U.S. Reports Helpline. Moreover, that Mensa only admits people who receive IQ scores that are in the top 2% of the population. Her communication abilities are so advanced, Big C, that with 50%, it's actually 50 sign language signs memorized so far. Again, 2 years old, when you think about it, Big C, in addition to learning English and Spanish and also how to read. At about 17 to 18 months, she had recognized all the alphabet numbers, the colors and shapes, and last I checked, there's still some adults who are still trying to figure that out, Big C.
Well, Charlton, not even to be the age of 3 and to be that intelligent, to be bilingual and to recognize all the alphabets in both of those languages, Charlton, as well as all numbers, that's phenomenal. And I give kudos to her parents, Charlton, for rearing such an intelligent young girl, Charlton, who is going to be one of the bright stars of the future. When we think about the advancement of black people in America, Charlton, and all of their accomplishments that have gone hidden throughout the light of history, Charlton, and now the opportunity for more and more black people to be recognized about their mental accomplishments well beyond athletic accomplishments, I think this is what the world needs to recognize more. We understand athletes are out there to entertain.
Yeah.
But when we think about the greatness of the black mind, as they've dealt with ingenuity and creativity in this country, Charlton, and that it's been left behind closed doors, now that it's coming to the light, maybe the world will pay more attention to this great culture.
Yeah, and it already has. All life began in Africa, and through the diaspora, people have gone throughout the continent, Big C, and developed their own cultures, Big C. But it all began on the African continent near the Nile region, according to Dr. Leakey and Reverendo. But I want to add something, too, because you can't please everybody, and it's always good to have somebody who has a different opinion because that's how your mind can develop to its maximum. I want to touch on the NBA. We just talked about the Mensa and the high IQ. But sometimes we talked about these fans, how Mayor de Blasio came out and held a press conference and talked about, I thought he was being flippant, but some people are dumb. And you can't talk to them that way because they'll go out and do it. Look at the insurrection that happened at the nation's capital when former President Trump was doing his same garbage. Some people take it serious and they actually go out and do things and then they say, I had nothing to do with it. All I did was tell them to do it. I want to just draw a comparison here. When I think about what happened, and we can talk about it all we want, I think it was Trae Young, the New York Knicks, they actually banned a fan from Madison Square Garden. And we talked about how the Madison Square Garden fans, maybe they let in Rikers Island, Big C, just to see an NBA basketball game. At the same time, popcorn that someone poured on Russell Westbrook is one thing. And with COVID-19 going on, we don't know where that popcorn came from. If you look at what happened with Trae Young, that someone actually spit bodily fluids on him, and who knows what kind of disease that person may have had, that could be criminal. If you give someone HIV, you know you can be prosecuted as a crime because a lot of people don't know that that's a crime, but it's a crime. If you knowingly have that virus and you sleep with somebody, they can prosecute you for a crime. So when someone says, oh, it's just spit, or it's just popcorn, that's a criminal charge right there. Not to go in the stands and beat somebody up and contract whatever they have, but that's a criminal charge, and I still blame de Blasio for that because he incited that riot, Big C. Your thoughts?
So you say that he was in Philadelphia also, and his words carried to Philadelphia, Charlton? That's assault, what that fan did to Russell Westbrook in Philadelphia, Charlton. That's actually physical assault, what he did. He took a physical object and attacked the player with it, regardless of what you want to name the object, Charlton. This is what he did. And so Russell Westbrook had the same intentions I would have had. He turned around and wanted to go after the fan, Charlton, because the fan crossed the line. And still today, as we've witnessed this on many occasions with professional athletes, where in the hell will the leagues draw the line as far as protecting players?
Yeah.
Where will the cities draw the line as far as protecting players, Charlton? Where will the arenas and the owners draw the line in protecting players?
Yeah. I think a very good example of the MMA, there was Khabib and Conor McGregor because they had a fight. And after Khabib choked out Conor McGregor and tapped him out, there was some fans that were starting, talking garbage. And he jumped outside of the octagon, got into those fans, and a couple of people got hurt. They had security there to take care of it, but they also had to deal with their day in court. So I just don't advise that. But the thing that happened with someone spitting on another person, that's a criminal act right there, more so than throwing popcorn at somebody. And I agree with you on one stand, they should be prosecuted. But to go into the stands and risk hurting somebody and getting charged with manslaughter, to me, it's not worth it, especially when you have a life outside of someone who may be drunk.
I'm going to ask you again, when will the league value the players more than they do the fans, Charlton? When will they protect the players from the fans on all levels of professional team sports? I'm talking about the NHL, where I've seen hockey players go into the stands after being assaulted by fans. The NBA, I've seen the same thing, Charlton. The NFL, I've seen that same action in the NFL well before, Charlton. We've seen the incidents as of late. There has been NFL players go up into the stadium, Charlton, and go after fans that have hurled objects after them.
Yeah.
And the NBA, we've seen this consistently. But I've seen officials, Charlton, hit in the head with whiskey bottles and cans and other things, Charlton, hurled by fans. When will the league protect the players and the officials more than they want to protect the fans?
Well, Madison Square Garden, they did say they identified who the assailant was, and that person will be banned from Madison Square Garden. However, they apologize. But would you believe they've turned the information over to the appropriate authorities? And Young, however, has declined to press charges against the fans. So you're advocating for the league to do something, and even Trae Young said he doesn't want to press charges. Big C, your thoughts?
I'm advocating for the league to do something, yes, because at what point does the league not want to protect its most valuable property, Charlton? Even beyond what the player has to spend time concentrating on trying to win a series. The league has plenty of legal people, Charlton, to handle these incidents. But if the leagues don't do something as a consortium, Charlton, all around through the top 4 professional leagues in America, think about if this happened to a WNBA player, Charlton, where some male fan wanted to accost her or attack her while she was playing the game. What type of backlash would come from that? So does a player really have to, be fatally injured or close to it, Charlton, for a fan to finally be banned? But tell me this. How the hell do you ban a fan? Tell me. I'm not smart enough to figure it out, so tell me, how do you ban a fan for life?
Well, that's what law enforcement's for, and that's what the security, they have their own security. They know how to figure out who's doing what, Big C. That's what law enforcement does. But there was a tennis player.
Not if that fan buys a ticket from a scalper, Charlton. The scalper's name is on the ticket, not the fan, the scalper.
Well,
so how do you know that the individual is not in the arena?
Well, you got to talk to security about that, and I'm sure they have their ways of doing things. I mean, when people commit crimes, how does law enforcement find them? They find them. People think they get away, but they don't get away. They have a way of finding people, Big C, but I'm not law enforcement, so I don't know how they do what they do. But there was a lady, a famous tennis player, I think it's Stacey, I don't want to say the wrong name, but she was stabbed by a fan. The fan came down onto the tennis court and actually stabbed her in the back. Security didn't do their job in protecting her. They did break it up, but that's something. How do you protect people when you have access so close to in proximity to the athletes on the floor? So that's something that everybody has to think about when it comes to the world of keeping people safe.
That was Steffi Graf, and she got stabbed in the back at a major tennis event, Charlton.
Yeah.
That man did 23 months in jail for stabbing a professional athlete while they were performing. Think about that, 23 months in jail for stabbing someone. What if he had hit a major artery, Charlton, and killed her? What, he'd have got, 48 months? But this is what I'm talking about. They spend more time protecting the damn fans than they do protecting the athletes. So athletes not only have to go out and worry about their opponent, Charlton, but they have to operate in fear of the yahoos that are sitting behind them in the stands.
Yeah, it happens in boxing, happens in NFL, happens in Major League Baseball, happens in a lot of things. MMA, we all know that. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause. And when we come back, I'm going to ask your thought. What's your example on how they can protect players and fans alike, Big C? We're going to do what's called the Big C Pause. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we're back from the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. I want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. So let me ask you that same question that you were asking. How does a sports league or a sports team protect players as well as they try to protect fans, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, a couple of years ago, there was a fan who grabbed a pitcher in the bullpen of the Chicago Cubs, grabbed his hat off of his head. This pitcher went into the stands as well as the catcher, Charleston, and they took care of business with this fan. This fan was arrested, Charleston, and charged with assault against the baseball player because he went into the baseball domain, Charleston, and he assaulted this player by taking his hat. And he got 36 months in jail. 36 months in jail. And so I think that all the leagues should get together and make a precedent, Charlton, a rule. When you come into this arena, if you do anything to cross this barrier, you will get a minimum jail time. And they need to get with the city councils and the mayors of those cities, Charlton, that they need to give them a minimum of 48 months in jail. If you're going to attack a professional athlete while they're at work, think about if somebody went into a hospital and attacked a worker in a hospital and said, well, you know, they were having a bad day, and that was just the first person they see. You guys just had a shooting out there in the Northern California area, Charlton, because a guy was having a bad day, so he goes and he kills 8 co-workers. So what is the sentence for harming people, Charlton? That's what it needs to be when you intimidate or cross the line on a professional athlete, Charlton. There needs to be a minimal sentence because we just got fans back into the arena, and now we have to start dealing with this crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to each judge and jurisdiction to decide what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Crossing over a borderline, Spike Lee, when he was out at Staples Center just the other day, they had it on television, and he actually was just told, hey, get back on the other side of that line. No one put him in jail. He didn't assault anyone. So it's about intent. If someone comes over and stabs an athlete like what happened to Stacey Graf, Big C, obviously there's criminal prosecution, but everybody has to deal with their own jurisdiction. So we finally got crowds back. Everybody was saying they want crowds back into the arena, Big C. And what happens? Fans harass players. That's happened so many times, Big C. In the last 2 nights, 3 playoff games, Trae Young got spit on. Russell Westbrook got popcorn dumped on his head. Completely unacceptable. It's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt or banned for life, but the league should really be filling out in how to file a lawsuit against fans and then send them to jail. But that's up for the courts to decide. And obviously, as you know, without even thinking about it, if you got deep pockets, Big C, and you're a certain complexion, and you stand in front of that judge, you're going to get a slap on the wrist. Somebody without deep pockets and maybe the wrong complexion, they may get the maximum sentence, and I don't advocate for that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about the tax base that these professional teams pay in these cities and the amount of revenue they generate for these cities, they can get with local lawmakers, Charlton, to enforce some type of barrier rule against these fans that harass these athletes at these arenas, Charlton. It doesn't make any difference of skin color because the majority of them are white that sit in that proximity that can attack an athlete, Charlton. But there needs to be something done against these egregious acts by these stupid butt fans that attack athletes.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope because people want the fans. They want the fans to interact. Some people high-five the fans, especially in NBA games. I've seen guys hustle to save a ball and then jump over the sideline, Big C, jump over maybe even the first row of fans just trying to not hurt anybody. And then the fans are the first ones to come to that person's aid. So I just think
But see, we're talking 2 different incidents right there. We're talking somebody who is acting with compassion.
Yeah.
who is protecting an individual as well as that player trying to protect them and going after their playing apparatus, Charlton, versus someone who is committing an egregious act. You cannot compare the two the same. You cannot at all write those with the same stroke of a pen, Charlton. One is criminal and one is compassion.
Yeah, that's all for the judge to decide. Some people say that people do what they got to do. I've seen people have a dog. They have police call, and because someone had a dog on a leash or not on a leash, and they called, and we've seen all that garbage. So it's kind of...
You can't compare everything to a sporting event. You try to give somebody a pass by bringing in an incident that's not even occurring in a sporting arena. We're talking about everyday life versus a sporting arena. You have paid to get into this arena or stadium, Charlton. You are paid to act like a civil, intelligent human being. But when you commit a criminal act in front of thousands of people, Charlton, and everyone has seen it across the country on their television, millions of others, this needs to be treated as a criminal act.
So when you said that you said some things that were insensitive or that provoked someone to want to fist fight you, and are you saying that person, when they found you, that they should have been prosecuted because they chose to threaten you after you were making a negative analysis of their performance? Big C, your thoughts?
No, I'm saying if that person had attacked me, yes, they should have been prosecuted. But when it's just dealing with words, it is a different story. And I'm pointing out incidents that's dealing with physical intent, Charlton, where you have crossed the barrier physically. I'm not talking about what somebody said. This is the First Amendment right to say what I said. And even that broadcaster about that MMA fighter, he had a First Amendment right that people fight for all the time to be able to utilize. But what I'm talking about, you don't have an amendment right to attack an individual physically. At that point, prosecution needs to take place. Damn, banning somebody for life for tickets, you cannot do that. That's a hypothetical event, saying I'm going to ban somebody for life because I can go buy somebody else's ticket and walk into the arena.
Well, I'm a little bit flummoxed because earlier you were advocating that fans should beat people up if they come onto the court.
No, I didn't say that. I said players should beat the fans up if they cross the line and touch them physically.
Okay, if you listen to your own words, it doesn't make any sense. But you can have to do that on your own time. But it doesn't make any sense that you advocate for someone to physically hurt another person if they step onto the court and threaten you. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I said if they make physical contact, you take pieces out. You can't do that. You have to use the whole statement. If you attack an athlete, you should have the right to kick their butt, Charlton, physically, because you're protecting yourself from physical assault.
Okay, well, maybe they should get rid of security and let the fans and the athletes do it on their own.
If security's doing their job, you don't need that. But where is security when these fans doing this? You talk about security, and security's been inactive unless you're Charles Oakley, and they send 7 people to attack you and drag you out of the arena. If you're a black man, this will happen. Why don't they do it to the white people?
So if you're a black athlete and a black fan...
You're going to tell me you didn't see Charles Oakley get accosted by seven security people there at Madison Square Garden sent by James Dolan, the owner, because he was saying things that James Dolan didn't like, and he ended up in jail. A black man's ended up in jail when this happens, Charlton, and he didn't touch anybody.
Well, as I mentioned to you, I knew a lot of guys growing up that were black. It was black on black crime, but it's just shocking that you, as a conscientious person, would talk about a crisis hotline for veterans to call if they're going under stress, and now you're saying beat people up if they come at you on a court or a stadium.
No, I said if they attack you. You keep taking snippets out. You won't use the complete statement that I made. Well, you have the right to defend yourself and property. You deal in real estate, and when you buy a homeowner policy, it states that you have a right to protect your property. You are your property when you're a professional athlete. That is your business. And most of these athletes have insurance on their property. So you have a right to protect your property.
Well, be that as it may, they still got to deal with the consequences if they take that advice that Charles Oakley or some of the guys Latrell Sprewell took, or Metta World Peace even changed his name because he didn't like what he did and he said he would have done it differently. It's all fair and love and war. But I want to ask you this because sometimes we think about double standards. Whether I think you're right or wrong, that's your opinion. People do have a right for self-defense, but there's always a price to pay if you don't decide to walk away from guys that may have a gun or a knife and you're sitting there with your bare hands. You're going to fight because you're tough and you get shot or stabbed. Doesn't make any sense, Big C. But does the NBA, Does it have a double standard as well, Big C? And this always star treatment you get in Hollywood. If a Hollywood actor or entertainer or even an athlete, if they want to go to a restaurant, if they make a phone call and say this famous person wants to go into a restaurant, is there preferential treatment? Of course there's preferential treatment. What if there's John Doe that works 9 to 5 someplace and he gets cut in front of the line because Mr. or Mrs. Superstar actor or athlete wants to go to that restaurant? Of course there's preferential treatment, Big C. Does the NBA have that when it comes to COVID-19 protocol? LeBron James getting ready to do some damage to the Phoenix Suns tonight at Staples Center, getting preferential treatment with the NBA's COVID protocol, Big C. LeBron James has been NBA royalty for as long as he's been in the league, and that's how it's been for the 36-year-old, a 4-time NBA champion with 17 All-Star selections and many other accomplishments, helping kids with schools and paying for educations. A lot of great things that he gets preferential treatment for. He also offers preferential treatment in society, Big C. So the idea that he is treated differently, that it reads better than a Kristaps Porzingis should come on as a surprise to no one. There are people who are treated differently. There is preferential treatment for athletes and entertainers, especially in their field of business. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if a penalty is a penalty in a sport, should it be called on the same players or opposite players, Charlton, when they commit the same penalty?
Yeah, it should, but that's not realistic, Big C. I mean, when you think about people who fly first class on an airline, and you may pay that.
For that.
Say that again?
You pay for that.
Well, maybe you pay for that, okay? At the same time, we want fairness and equality. Should a strike be a strike to Barry Bonds or John Doe? Of course it should. If Acuna Jr. gets a strike, is it a ball to another player that's lesser? Well, no. I mean, we don't know, Big C. It's preferential treatment. Larry Bird told the referee that you think the fans came to see you call fouls or watch me drop 30 points. We know there's preferential treatment. People are going to be treated differently. Tom Brady got touched on his shoulder pad in an AFC playoff game in Kansas City. And that was given a 15-yard personal foul penalty when other guys could get slammed to the ground. Patrick Mahomes in this year's Super Bowl, he was getting knees to the head. There was no personal fouls call or roughing the passer. You don't think that's preferential treatment, Big C? Your thoughts?
It is so preferential treatment, Charlton, and it's something that athletes have dealt with forever. But,
yep.
If a fine is for one penalty, is for one player, Charlton, and another player commits that same fine and doesn't get the same penalty and doesn't get a fine, I think that's an egregious act by the league, Charlton. If you're going to penalize one player financially, you have to penalize all players for those same things, royalty or not, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you sit there and you look at something that's blatant, you say, well, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt, and then the other player has to be fined.
Yeah.
And I love all athletes.
Yeah.
I think all the athletes should be treated the same.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Well, we know Magic Johnson told us when the USA basketball team was selected, he told all the players, don't stand too next to Jordan. They might call a foul because Michael Jordan was protected, Big C. And the league needs to do that to build. It's a name of superstars, not a name of fairness, Big C. That's what it's all been about. So if we're talking about a friendly whistle by an official during a game, that's one thing. Tom Brady knows there's a lot of preferential treatment. It's what's kept Kansas City out of three times going to the Super Bowl, Big C. That's just my opinion. But by the way, the NBA handled LeBron James' health and safety protocol violation shortly before addressing a similar violation by Porzingis, Big C. It raised a lot more questions than answers. And specifically, how did James wind up with nothing more than a league reprimand while Porzingis was on the hook for a $50,000 fine, despite committing the same violation in the eyes of many was very similar to what LeBron James did, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it was. I mean, and Porzingis got fined $50,000 for the league, and, the league told LeBron, hey, make sure you don't do it again.
Yeah.
But, how do the rest of the league look at that? Everybody knows the superstar status that LeBron James has.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about the league, I mean, all players do have their own charities that they deal with off the court. They just don't all let it be known what they donate to, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to protocol, we saw it last year with Lou Williams when he left the bubble and went and got some
That's right.
Chicken wings at the strip club. He
Yeah.
was suspended and fined by
for
the league.
eating chickens.
LeBron
Yeah.
and Kristaps Porzingis does the same protocol breaking this year, Charlton. Porzingis gets a $50,000 fine. LeBron said, hey, we're not going to look at it.
Yeah, we're not going to. And that's just part. Hollywood actors get the same treatment, Big C. They all get to go to the front of the line. at a restaurant. Sometimes if you're not famous, you can't even get in. But speaking of actors, we're going to see your friend, the Joker, playing some acting tonight, as they're going to be heading up to where the real smoke is, the real gun smoke, Big C, in the city of Portland. It's not called the city of brotherly love. This is the city of smoke. You have Dollar Dame, and he's waiting for him, Big C, up in the city of Portland at the Moda Center. A lot of people are feeling that one of these guys could be the league MVP. Everybody has their own opinion about that. What are you expecting to see tonight up in Portland? As you just talked about that preferential treatment, will there be preferential treatment given to the home team Portland Trailblazers the same way there was preferential treatment given to the Denver Nuggets when Portland played them in Denver in Game 2, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we're going to see the league MVP tonight do his thing in the consecutive games. Joker Charlton is going to get his. He's going to get his teammates involved in the game. You're going to see him very efficient in passing. He most likely will walk out of there with a triple-double tonight and put Portland down 2-1. Michael Porter Jr. has to step up and have a big game also.
It's all fair in love and war. I don't know how it's going to go. They're going to call it either way they got to call it. You want to crown them? Crown them. It's all fair in love and war. But Portland should get that game if what you say is true. If there's a such thing as preferential treatment, I don't see them getting it not given to them at home. That's just my opinion. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat, when you talk about preferential treatment, maybe some Miami fans thought that the Bucks got a lot of preferential treatment when Miami took the barbecue grill up to Milwaukee. And that I tell you, Bucks can read, Big C. They're pretty smart. They've seen barbecue grills before when they were trying to put Bucks on the grill. And that Buck jumped off the grill twice, and they did it in decisive fashion. Now the Bucks, they got to go down to Miami where it's a little bit hot and maybe even a little bit desperate. Will we see any preferential treatment for the Heat to get them back into the game, Big C? Your thoughts?
The Heat just don't have the wherewithal to keep up with the Bucks right now. The Bucks are playing at a torrid rate. When you look at what Giannis is doing, as well as Lopez, Middleton, and Holiday, Charlton, even Devin Sims is coming off the bench. They're all playing at that all-star pace. They know what the task at hand is, Charlton, that they left the playoffs too early over the past 2 seasons. And this is their best chance ever to get to the Eastern Conference Final.
Big C, they look like they've had a little bit of recharge in their battery, that Energizer Bunny that you said you wanted to go outside, but there was a bigger bunny than you in the backyard, so you decided to stay inside. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, they're not energized. They're just playing with a sense of urgency. I mean, when you look at Budenholzer and what he has been through as a coach there in Milwaukee and not getting his team to the next level, Charlton, he understands that, he doesn't have many opportunities left.
It's all fair and level. I wish them nothing but the best. The biggest game, I told you there was an eclipse just the other day, and the sun was blacked out by somebody's tidal wave that came out of the Pacific Ocean or something of that nature. Big C. His name was LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who played like a Lion King Mustafa in the movie Lion King back in the day, Big C. At the same time, Chris Paul has a little hitch in his giddy up, and it seems to happen. It happened before when they were playing Golden State, when the great Chris Paul played for the Houston Rockets, and he had a hitch in his giddy up, and Golden State came back and took that series. Now you have maybe the best basketball arena in the NBA, 17 world championships, the Los Angeles Lakers, Big C, maybe the best fan base of basketball loyalists in the NBA, and maybe even more well-behaved than what you have at the garbage that came out of Madison Square Garden that mainstream media tried to say, hey, this is what we want to see. No one wants to see that garbage. But the fans in LA, they're more smart and savvy and respectful when it comes to cheering on their team. Does the Phoenix Suns have any chance of not having the Pacific Ocean splash out all of their lights in the next 2 games, Big C? Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Charlton, they have a shooter's chance, and they have some outstanding shooters there on the Phoenix Suns. I mean, we know that Devin Booker is going to have to play a larger role. He's always been the team leader. But DeAndre Ayton has to step up his game tonight, Charlton. He has to get at least 25 points and dominate the paint for the Phoenix Suns. Cameron Payne is going to be the X factor in the game. Chris Paul is questionable. Cameron Payne is going to have to take his role, Charlton, and he's going to have to be aggressive. We need to see 20 points out of Cameron Payne tonight if the Suns have a chance.
Yeah, Kuzma's got to play better for the Lakers as a role player. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are going to get their thing. Caldwell Pope has to do his thing. It's all fair and love and war. I really like what's going on in the world of NBA. There's no guarantee you're going to win a game at home, but I think the Lakers will sweep the next 2 games at the Staples Center. Tonight, WNBA action, Big C, on beautiful May the 27th. In the WNBA universe, we have the Dallas, and they are playing Atlanta. It's amazing. Both of them have their men's and women's teams playing hot basketball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's early in the WNBA season, Charlton. The ladies have had some turmoil early in the year with some people from the press attacking them, you know, and making statements about the ladies. And so it's not just always physical, Charlton, but it's mental also and verbal that people get hit with in professional sports.
People get hit in professional. I want to go up across the border where they won't let anybody in. Big C, Montreal Canadiens versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. In Game 5, they're doing a free live stream, Big C, of this NHL contest in the good old boys from Canada. You can watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they can do it online, Big C. It's free for a lot of people. The Maple Leafs, led by center Austin Matthews, face the Montreal Canadiens, led by right wing Cole Caulfield. Big C, Game 5, their NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, first round series at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Big C. And it's a big party going on north of the border, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the northern teams, Charlton, are going at it tonight. The Leafs are trying to eliminate the Habs from the NHL playoffs, Charlton. It's been a long time since we've seen the Leafs in the Stanley Cup. But I don't know if they're going to get it done tonight, Charlton. The Habs have a lot of heart, and they're going to fight back. They're down 3-1.
Yeah.
I expect it to be 3-2 when the night is over.
What do I want to ask you a question about the fans, and I've heard people say that people in Canada are just more maybe cultured, and it's not this, it's like it's more of a, how do you say you have good behavior, even though they can be very good advocates for their own team. And sometimes in the United States, there's a lot more crime we know in the United States, and people know for whatever various reasons. But maybe I don't know the answer, maybe you don't know the answer either. I'm sure they have some type of fan issues in Canada. But do you think it is as hateful as what we have here in the United States when people just go at each other? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to understand that the Habs and the Leafs, Charlton, these are 2 of the original 6 NHL teams. And they have a long and illustrious history. You know, these fans have had a lot of battles between each other, as well as the players and the fans. But, you know, the mutual respect that they've gained over the decades of playing with each other, Charlton, and I think just Canada as a country has been more kinder. We have so much upheaval in these American cities that we have that, you know, there's so much hatred around.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's come from the media, whether it's come from the politicians, Charlton, you know, over the past several years in America, we've seen the rise of hate. And it's gotten more and more. And when it's advocated on television about cultural differences, Charlton, when we see the fans are normally white fans attacking black players, just like society has been over the past several years.
Well, I have to disagree with you on that. I've known a lot of people, as I mentioned in the show, they look just like each other, and they hurt each other anyway. It's not about color, it's about character of those people.
The 2 incidents that happened in the NBA, both players were black. Both fans were white. That's what I'm addressing.
But I'm addressing, as I told you, I knew a lot of friends that were black, and they hurt each other irrespective.
Were they at the NBA game attacking Trae Young and Russell Westbrook?
No, but that's your paradigm.
But that's what we're talking about.
No, but that's what
we can go out in societal roles all day long. We're talking about sports.
No,
we're talking about incidents that have happened on television that everybody witnessed. We're talking about Madison Square Garden. We're talking about in Philadelphia at their arena. What happened in those arenas, Charlton, as well as the hockey arena? Everybody has incidents that they grew up with. We can compare life all day long. But we're talking about what's happening to professional athletes. We can talk about our friends that we can't even talk about on air. But when we're talking about professional athletes, that's what we're talking about. Or we could do a show about your friends.
But you erroneously always want to point out how white people do something wrong to black people, and there's a lot of black on black hatred and garbage that goes on.
I love the way that you like to cover for societal problems.
No, but you don't listen.
By saying black people did it also.
No, you don't listen.
We're sitting here talking about sporting events. We witnessed at sporting events. I guess if we talk about de Blasio making negative statements, we should say black people make negative statements all day long. So why are you listening to de Blasio?
Well,
okay? That was a black person that incited those people to do it, not de Blasio. We can go that direction. But when we're sitting here watching black athletes and you ask anybody about this in the media or even in the streets, Was those black athletes being attacked by white fans? Or were those black fans attacking those black athletes?
Well, before I was so rudely cut off again, I was just finishing my point. I know a lot of kids in AAU, most of them are black, and sometimes the parents want to fist fight each other. And when they listen to this garbage that only white people hurt black people, that's erroneous. And we deal with a lot of fathers like myself that try to reach out and tell these young kids, stop this hating each other. Well, Big C said white people do it. No, don't worry about Big C. I'm talking about you. Show respect to your teammates. Show respect to the other fans. Quit making it about black and white. If you're going to put that much energy into some white people hurting black people, the black society has to put the same energy to us stop hurting each other. And that's a fact, Big C. Tonight's NBA schedule is going to be great. I look forward to great NBA action. But tonight's also Major League Baseball schedule, Big C. Philadelphia at the Miami Marlins. The Colorado Rockies at the New York Mets. Chicago Cubs play the Pittsburgh Pirates. The San Diego Padres will play the Milwaukee Brewers. The Cleveland Indians at the Detroit Tigers. Kansas City Royals at the Tampa Bay Rays. Colorado Rockies at the New York Mets. The Blue Jays at the Yankees, Big C. The Reds will play the Nationals. And also the Blue Jays and the Yankees again. We have also Orioles and White Sox, the Angels and the Athletics. The Cardinals at the Diamondbacks, and the Rangers will play the Mariners. And of course, California's finest series, the Los Angeles Dodgers are home versus the San Francisco Giants. It's all fair in love and war. I love bringing up things that are real. And sometimes you want to just act like only one thing happens in society based on skin color. And I can't tell you enough how many young black kids I had to talk to that were bullied by other black boys. And nobody says anything about it. And it's a shame when we put so much emphasis on when it's a different skin color and we got to go talk to that parent why their kid was beaten up by somebody that looks just like them. It's a garbage, Bixie. I hate that garbage. But I want to touch on something else that's important, NFL style. The Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, they named Catherine Ritchie as their new vice president of football operations on Thursday. Ritchie served as Philadelphia's football operations coordinator since 2019. She was previously director of football administration for the CFL Toronto Argonauts in 2018 and 2019. Ritchie's the first woman to be the vice president of football operations for an NFL team, though she isn't the lone female executive in the league. The Broncos hired Kelly Klein in their executive director of football operations May 17th. During her Denver, she was going to Denver actually after 9 years working with the Minnesota Vikings organization. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we see the steady advancement of women in the NFL over the last couple of years, from the officiating ranks, the coaching ranks, and now executive ranks, we're getting a level of equality as far as gender equity in the front office of the NFL, only if they put that much emphasis as far as putting black head coaches on the sideline, Charlton.
They got to do that, especially down in the SEC where they have no black head coaches. That's so important, Big C. I want to talk about sports memorabilia in history. 1979, OP Chiefs, Big C, Wayne Gretzky. When you think about it, the rookie card sold for $3.70. It's $3.75 million actually in a private sale brokered through Heritage Auctions. The card was graded the Gem Mint 10 and blew past the previous record for a hockey card, which was set this past December when the same version of the Gretzky card sold for $1.29 million, also with Heritage Auctions. The card that sold in December had previously sold for $465,000 in 2016 and $94,000 in 2011. There are just a handful of cards out there to reach such a stratospheric heights, and they bear such names as Mickey Mantle, LeBron James, Mike Trout, and Michael Jordan, and many other greats. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, when we talk about sports memorabilia and the heights that it has grown to, I am always walking around in depression, Charlton, thinking about how many tens of thousands of dollars I put on the spokes of my bike as I was riding around as a kid.
And didn't have no knowledge that you would. They say throwing pearls before swine is all fair in love and war at Big C. I wish that more people would keep their paraphernalia. It's only fitting that the greatest hockey player of all time and one of the most beloved, revered athletes in the 20th century join their higher ranks, Big C. The Women's NCAA Golf Championship, Julia Johnson, she wrote out a list of goals when she arrived at Ole Miss to play golf for a program that had won so much as an SEC title, Big C, the fifth and final goal national champion. Part of me, she said, thought that they could do it. Part of me thought it was just a big dream. But Johnson said Wednesday after the Rebels overwhelmed Oklahoma State 4-1 to win the NCAA Women's Championship. She didn't think it hit her yet, Big C, but they're going to cherish this moment forever to have their national championship for Ole Miss in any sport. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, to be the first women's team at a university to win a sports championship in the history of that university, Charlton, is a marvelous feat for these young ladies in 2021.
Yep.
When you think about the pride that they're going to be able to go around with for the rest of their lives, winning that university's first golf championship for the women's team.
Yeah, for the women's team. Congratulations to anybody that's able to win a championship. You know, we talk so much about mental awareness, Big C, mental health awareness. Even the NBA would be scrolling across their screen tonight about mental health awareness and how they can text a number to help, just like we do on the crisis hotline. People don't have to agree. In fact, be wary of people that agree with everything you say. It doesn't change your mind. It doesn't sharpen your mind. But I remind myself that my self-worth is not always about a bank account or how well I might be known or not known. It's really an ability to give and receive love and kindness and compassion, and to not take advantage of people just because you think you can. And unfortunately, too many people do that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, mental awareness is being aware of your surroundings and those that are around you, and paying attention to others, Charlton, seeing the needs that other people have. That's what mental awareness is. And when we talk about mental security, Charlton, that means that you're very prescient about a lot of things that involve a lot of people that will help them also.
All very well said in love and war, Big C. Everybody sometimes reach out, see how somebody's doing. If somebody's doing you wrong, just stay away from them. You don't have to be around people trying to hurt you, even if they don't think that you know. It's all fair, love and war. Finishing story, Big C. NFL predicting when each NFL rookie quarterback would make his first NFL start. Number one, Trevor Lawrence. Maybe people think in the first week. You have Zach Wilson. Some people think it might be first week for him. There's the great Trey Lance. Then there's Justin Fields. There's Mac Jones and Kyle Trask. You had so many different players that are part of these great teams, Big C. Even you have for the Vikings, you have Mon, Mills for the Texans, and Brooks for the Saints. Elliott playing for the Colts may not happen. But of those top quarterbacks, Big C, who do you see, at least in one of the first parts of the season, getting the chance to snap the ball, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, undoubtedly Trevor Lawrence will be starting opening day down in Jacksonville, as well as Zach Wilson with the New York Jets. Justin Fields is that X factor where he could either start in week 1 or probably week 3 for the Chicago Bears, but he'll see a lot of action as the number 1 Bears quarterback this season, Charlton. When you think about Mac Jones up there in New England, this is a kid, you know, that if they make the trade for Julio Jones at wide receiver, he will be the Patriots starting quarterback because he can get the ball downfield to Julio Jones. Trey Lance in San Francisco, I think Jimmy Garoppolo will be starting all year long for the 49ers and staying healthy. He understands how critical this is for the rest of his career, Charlton. Those other quarterbacks taken in the latter rounds, when you talk about Mons, Kyle Trask, you know he's not going to play in Tampa unless, you know, Tom Brady gets hurt in some kind of way. But it's going to be an intriguing season when it comes to rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah,
very well said. I want to take a chance to just mention, we talk about mental health and being able to say, I'm sorry. You know, I made a mistake. I screwed up. As opposed to trying to intentionally hurt somebody and never even apologize. I don't know this guy's name. His name is Kwame Brown, an American former professional basketball player. There's a personality by the name of Charlemagne the God. He apologized to Kwame Brown for unintentionally doing some things that were very hurtful to him. These are two black men. And I appreciate Charlemagne the God for being man enough to say, I was wrong. That I did something so insensitive and I was wrong and I apologize. He didn't double down on it. He didn't say the guy has to have thick skin. He didn't say, oh, there's those white people that hurt black people. This is a black on black mentality. And there's so many people in the media that are black men that cry when racism happens and they shout Black Lives Matter. But Kwame Brown has a family. And people say, oh, he's a bust or he's washed up, he's used up. How can somebody who's been successful at anything be torn down by people who look just like them? And that's what I disdain about black men who cry about racism, but they don't do anything to protect other black men from being harmed verbally or physically by other black men. So I appreciate Charlemagne the God for saying, you know what? This is not about white people. This is about me. And I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I appreciate that because too many of us make money by tearing down each other and they'll shout and cry racism and say nothing when another brother hurts another brother. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you can recognize your own wrongs as an individual, that's a great feat for anybody, regardless of culture. But, you know, when you attack athletes, so many of these talk shows have been able to raise their level by attacking black athletes, whether it's a white guy attacking them or a black guy attacking them, Charlton. You seem to get more notoriety when you attack a black athlete versus a white athlete, and that's the reason why I made a statement earlier, is there preferential treatment when it comes to the different athletes.
It's all fair and love and war, but it takes a real person to say I was wrong and I'm sorry, and that's even the biblical truth. It's all fair and love and war. Congratulations, Charlamagne the God, for showing people how to behave. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Joe Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward to the equality and equitable treatment amongst fans. And Charlton, when I make that statement 3 years ago, Charles Oakley was arrested in Madison Square Garden by 7 security guys, Charlton, and he did not touch anybody physically. He only talked verbally, but he was taken out for addressing a white man, Charlton. We saw Trae Young be spat on 2 nights ago, Charlton, in Madison Square Garden by a white fan. Nothing was done to him physically. I just look forward to the equitable treatment of fans in the stadium one day in America. Once again, I want to say thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They all treat everybody equally.
Treat everybody equity. Equity is great. Treating people right is great. It's always easy to do the right thing. You have to think really hard about doing the wrong thing. You can do the right thing when you rise and shine. You can rise and shine every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as my mom always said, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.